All right. Back again. It's Wednesday, August 27th. Holy shit. Wednesday, August 27th. Another night of not much sleep. We had to get up at 4:30 in the morning this morning to go to the post office to pick up our baby meat birds, chickens and turkeys, little peepers. They deliver them in a vented box by mail, and you have to be there. Boom, right away. As soon as I get them, you got to be there. You have to be there to pick them up, put them in the pen. So we got that one done. I'm slowly getting our stuff packed, our hunting equipment packed, our camp packed to leave. Got my truck back yesterday. And that was a great conversation we had yesterday, wasn't it? With Kevin? Wasn't that great? I wonder how, of all the emails, all the people we talk to here, everybody that gets to speak here, their experiences, what your gut tells you when you are listening to each individual. I wonder what's coming, what has changed for many of your puzzles out there. You know what I mean? Like years ago, just like me, thinking you got it figured out. And then you only to find out rapidly, for me anyways, I was wrong. I was wrong on a lot of things when it comes to this topic and more. But I'm definitely getting there in my ride. And I wonder what it's been doing for all of your puzzles, all of your rides, what conclusions you've come to, what repetitive, patterned, in-your-face pattern knowledge you refuse to accept. You know what I mean? I wonder. But anyway, that'd be an interesting read if everybody wants to throw down in the comments section how your ride has changed due to listening to all of the people word for word. And then having the option to take from where you will or leave it. How is your puzzle changed? I'm really, really curious. Especially after when you talk to people like the guys from the Arizona group, right? When you listen to them, what they've experienced, and they don't give a flying shit if anybody believes it or not. And I trust those fellas. I trust them. Now, I had an email I was reading when Kevin came on yesterday, so I think I'll start from the beginning with that one and continue to get voices heard. 3 Unusual Encounters in California is the title of this email. Dear Steve, thank you for welcoming me to the round table, and here are my stories. My parents separated when I was young, so I was raised in the city, but I spent vacations partially with my father up in Northern California's country, where he had a small cattle ranch. One summer in the early 1960s, we were running a small dude string for tourists to ride horses in the northern Sierra Mountains near La Porte, California. My father was a real cowboy and had many skills, so we had built a small corral out of timber poles and had run a single strand of wire around a meadow across the road from our camp to hold the 10 horses at night. We had a small trailer with a propane stove and a refrigerator to eat in, and slept under a large whale boat cover near it on the ground. That's how it reads. This was a real adventure for a 12-year-old boy to experience some Western-style living. One night, we and the 2 hired hands were awakened by a crashing through the brush sound of a very fast-moving something. Dad yelled to the others, "Was it a bear?" We thought it was trying to get some food we would keep in a bag placed in a nearby stream. I don't know what it was, but it was big and sure moved fast and made no other sounds. Smart, whatever it was. Scary that nobody knew it had entered our camp until it ran off. That summer north of here, Dad had told me about 2 cowboys farther north of us who had claimed to film a Bigfoot. Yes, they were Bob Gimlin and Patterson. Who knows if? In a story for another time, Dad had relayed to me an encounter 2 prospectors A local to the area had talked about a spaceship landing near their camp one night and 3 short little men climbing down a ladder from the craft and retrieving a bucket of water from a creek and then taking off. He said the prospectors had been ridiculed so that they would fight you if you brought it up. Second encounter took place also in the Sierras near the Eel River during deer season in 1974. I was on a short trip with my college roommate who had served in Vietnam a couple years earlier. The first night we camped on a cliff overlooking the river. It was a very brushy and tree-thick area, so we slept on the ground with no fire. The weather was still and warm that early October. Very peaceful and quiet until the middle of the night when we were awakened by bipedal loud crunching sound of something/someone walking down the hill from our car, which was parked on the logging road above us. I was a city-raised guy, so I was so spooked by this unknown in the total darkness that I said to my buddy, "Grab the rifles." We had propped them up against a tree before. He replied no, and yet was also nervous enough to call out, "Hello? Who's there?" Silence. We did not hear another sound or hear it leave, and he said it was probably a deer. Again, I don't know, but weird feelings. Steve, you're an experienced hunter. Do deer stop when you yell at them and then not move all night afterwards? They definitely can stop when you yell at them, but they take off. Third encounter, the most weird and scary of all. It took place in the Big Sur Wilderness, just south of Pfeiffer State Park boundary in California. This is in the mid-1980s, with a Native American friend hiking on a single-track trail inland east of Highway 1 near the Pacific Coast. We parked in a parking lot and decided to hike back 12 miles to a hot spring. This was the middle of the week during the summer, and not many people, in fact. Hardly anybody was on the trail that we passed walking in there. The trail was very steep on one side going up and very steep on the downside. The vegetation and redwood trees were very thick on both sides, so you could hardly see up or down, left or right of the trail as you walked. The 3-hour hike in was hot but peaceful with some bird sounds, but almost silent. A few nice folks like ourselves were enjoying the spring, and my friend wanted to stay the night there. Bracket, a few of the young ladies there were naked, end bracket, lol. Well, with only our day packs on, and a couple of energy bars, I just did not feel comfortable staying the night on the ground, so we decided to hike back to my truck and his tent to the parking lot. This is late in the day. Jim was a good friend and part Cheyenne Indian, but he sure did walk more slowly than me. With his shorter height, I'm a tall, skinny guy, and we agreed that I would walk at my pace back down the trail and see him back at the lot. We were both carrying small pistols in our packs, so I told him to fire off a shot when he reached about halfway back down the trail, and I would too. That way, we'd confirm we were okay. We did that about 2 hours later, and I continued walking. I only passed one hiker on my way back, and she was in a hurry to get to the hot springs before dark. She looked a little stressed and sweaty, so I told her she had about 1 hour to her destination and that she would pass my friend coming the opposite way. It's getting late, and I wanted to be back at my truck before darkness. And shortly afterwards, I walked around one of the bends in the trail, and everything went dead silent. On the way inbound early that day, we had smelled something really bad, like sweat/urine/feces/rot that I had never smelled before. And suddenly, a feeling of fear/dread came over me, and I could feel I was being watched/threatened. I'd never had such an immediate discomfort, and the hairs on my body were all erect like I was cold. This feeling was so overwhelming that I looked back over my left shoulder up the mountain and started to trot quickly, until I rounded another bend in the trail, and the birds were singing and I felt relaxed again. It was very strange. And then just at dark, Jim came off the trail. I told him about the incident, and he told me he had the same feelings at the same location on that trail. He wrote it off as a mountain lion or some creature of the forest watching us. I wonder if firing off our pistols that day had any effect on it. I wouldn't be surprised. At this stage of the game, what we've been learning from everyone, I wouldn't be surprised. Being raised mostly in the big city, these feelings had not been experienced by me before, and has only happened one time since. That was when I felt it one night in the city, when I knew a guy was crossing a dark street to come to me to do no good. And I heard a voice, my dead mother, say, run toward him. I reacted and avoided who knows what. And you are correct, Steve, that we Homo sapiens have senses/skills that have been buried. Absolutely, 100%. I've been viewing your posts for over a year now, and have been thinking back to other people and events with a new perspective. I look back to 2 newspaper articles that reported sightings of these beings near where I now live, and I'm no longer amazed at how many witnesses exist worldwide. What is happening to all the missing folks in the national parks and forests? I now bring up the subject of the Sabe to whomever, and I don't care what they think of me personally. When you know, then you know. Education is the key to the truth. You're a part of that. Thank you for listening to my experiences, and I anticipate more truth as you set up in your new home. I do wish it gives you what you need to thrive, Dave. And it does, Dave, and I appreciate the kind words, my man. And I more appreciate the time you just donated to share all your experiences with everyone here. That's gold. Gold. What do we got here? Okay, that was that PBS one. Didn't mark it as red. Dummy. Mark that as red. All right. Mark this as red. This is titled, Some Personal Experiences. Is long, but can be broken into pieces if you like. How long is it? Well, that's a fair chunk. Nothing we can't take care of here. Hello, Steve. I stumbled onto your channel recently. I now watch you regularly as I have not yet viewed most of your content. After some interactions in the comment section to feel it out, if it would matter, I found it does, and that I should in fact write in and talk about some of what I've seen and heard, and so forth. It's maybe a little different than much of what you share. However, I feel much of it all ties together on some level. One of the first signs of off happenings and encounters, is having a complete meltdown while I was 4 years old. I could not sleep. I got up to see if I could lay in bed with my mother. She was watching some documentary on alien stuff, and I don't recall much about the host holding something up on a screen, and I had a complete sobbing breakdown of pure terror, like it was familiar and malicious. We had a family hunting cabin for a very long time, so I'd already been out in the wilderness. I remember certain specific places always scaring the shit out of me, and they still do. Everyone hated one particular side window, and we always felt like something watched us through it. That's creepy. We didn't talk about it unless someone not used to it said something. Then anybody else up there would speak up about it bothering them too. At one point, the front of the shack was torn off from the door frame in the center, off the front wall, all the way to the side wall 10 feet or so away. Windows ripped out. My father said it was a bear, a black bear. This is upstate New York. We only have one type of bear. Nobody could figure out why it looked like it was busted from the inside out, or pulled off the frame more accurately. I saw the damage. A cooler was chewed up by a bear, but it couldn't get into it with its simple flip latch. So how the hell could it figure out how to open a cabin like a dollhouse? Anyway, that's not something you see every day. Boards, yes. Doors busted in, yes. Entire face of a small house pulled off the timbers, not so much. There are lots of stories of seeing huge black wild cats the size of cougars. Tales of being followed while stalking deer by what they swore was a person acting like they were hunting the hunter. What else do we know about it? What else do we not know about in such a small stretch of wild land? At around 8 years old, while being driven home from my grandmother's, we had a red oval-shaped object fly from the left-hand side out of a wood canopy and stick to about 100 feet over the car until we got to the next town. I don't remember it leaving. I remember it having a vivid blue center. My mother pretended she didn't see it, but clearly did. And we lost time on the trip, about an hour. Creepy. I have had several of what would be called ghost sightings. Most prominent, basically, it looked like a pale blue, semi-transparent little girl, 4 to 6 years old, was dropped from an overpass into the road below. She stood up, looked horrified, covered face, drops to her knees and gets knocked backwards, but vanished before hitting the ground again. Ew. It was witnessed by a friend as well. Back to the woods. I've seen eyes shine from places that had nothing. I could see physically to make them. More times than I care to think about. Reflections on wet leaves don't blink and stare or follow your movements. We do have a specific type of entity called grinning men, or Lake George grinning men. They are 4 to 5 feet tall, slender, with lemur-like faces with a permanent grin. They can blend into the background much like they're able to bend light with their bodies, so they're able to hide in trees off the ground and observe. I suspect this is what was watching us through that window so often. There would be huge piles of husked, fresh pine and cedar cones, de-seeded and fresh blueberry plant stems, etc., like something was having a snack and watching us like a TV show. Occasionally, small tools would vanish and show up in impossible places, like games were being played. Set down a hammer, go to grab a drink out of sight of the tool, go back, and it's just gone. Then it reappears in the fall in a tree stand, and nobody else had been around to do it. That kind of thing. In my mid-20s, I lived out there for 3-ish months and never saw anybody else, which I mentioned for perspective. I had times when I could hear myself being followed by much larger sounding, two-legged things when I would explore old skidder trails. Random fight-or-flight instincts out of nowhere kick in. The thought of, I need to flee, or I'm dead, has randomly entered my head many times out there. And generally, it led to suddenly hearing shit crashing through the brush next to the camp yard or road. I actually felt like I needed a gun at all times from that first initial crash. It wasn't a feeling of normal activity. I felt personally hunted. I had to have lights strapped on me, pointing in all directions, plus weapons, light, and laser, just in hopes of knowing what way to turn and make it harder for anything close to actually see well enough to be comfortable if I had to do anything at night after that. The camp was surrounded by swamp with evergreens like blue spruce, cedar, and a lot of tag alders where the evergreens aren't. After about my second week of this feeling this way, and I was starting to see movement at the edge of my lights, shadows moving wrong. I don't know how to describe it. Branches swing with no wind, and whatever bit wouldn't let the light actually shine on them, it or whatever. I heard a lot of odd chittering from different directions at that time as well. Sorry, I ramble a bit when I start thinking about it. Another time I was grabbing firewood just after sundown one evening and I heard a moose snort. It was close. Bracket. Yes, we have moose here too, end bracket. But not worrying. They are grumpy, but it wasn't exactly visible or ready to charge. No antlered rubbing sounds as they do. What I heard after that made me question a lot. A very loud cracking sound happened like a bigger tree, 10 to 15 inch diameter trunks are common for the spot, was being broken in half. The moose bellowed loudly, and I then heard a series of gut-wrenching smashing of wet flesh and a gurgling moose. It was nightmarish. Hell no, I didn't go look to see what it was or where it happened. This is a swamp thicket. I'd not stand a chance of escape. I carried a .375 H&H after that for a good while. It's when I had that maybe could give me a chance, I felt. It's what I had that maybe could give me a chance, I felt. I also was not bothered too much after I let off a few shots. into a natural berm for shooting safety. I made it known that I had something more considerable than the regular hunting guns. Like, I don't know if it helped. I'm sure it didn't hurt. And I'm writing to you now, and I'm not a disappearance case. I'm sure the sound helped. These beings do seem to know what guns are most of the time, so I'm seeing. So maybe they realized if I actually was able to shoot one for some reason, it would do real damage. I don't know. I don't exactly want to shoot them to find out. I've been riding around my local area with my axe, and I saw stuff multiple times. I have described some of it in the comments, as I said, to test and to see if I should bother writing. My local big town is Plattsburgh, New York. In the area, we have many colleges in a 50-mile radius, plus what was the 14th largest Air Force base, a giant living agricultural laboratory, as they call it, for the Minor Farm Institute. We have natural vortexes in and around Lake Champlain, and on both sides of it. The mountains, Adirondack and Green Mountains of New York and Vermont, respectively, just to give an idea what is around. Well, on one drive, we were on the lakeshore, and what looked like a raccoon darts out into the road. We slow down to a crawl, and at about halfway over the road, the thing stands on its hind legs, still running full speed. Down into a ditch and sticks to the shadows. I could see its eyes still after it was in the ditch, out of the headlight's reach. It had a bushy tail. It was maybe 2 feet tall. Its limbs were longer than it first looked like. It was a light tan, almost Caucasian skin color as well, and the oddest thing was that it was out of focus. With naked eyes, it looked like TV static was partially obscuring its outline for details. The eyes were a distinct deep amber color. I'm not religious, but the only matching entity I've ever seen elsewhere was a wood carving of Pandora's box, Pandora and Creatures, done in the 1400s. I abandoned further research as I don't want to deal with what finds me for looking in the wrong places and finding the wrong stuff. And about a year later, the same ex and I were driving around at night in an area called Sciota, S-C-I-O-T-A. And as we near an overpass with wide clearings on both sides and a bright clear moon, it was not being distorted, out lumbers this thing. It looked like a messed up deer, low swinging head, neck pointed at the ground. I remember wondering how it was moving with a broken neck. The physical build was all wrong. It had thick forelimbs with defined big, but that wiry build style of muscles, short hind limbs, longer fur in patches with pink. Looked mangy, and then it got into the light of our now stopped car. What the hell is that? Is this something from hell? I wondered. If H.P. Lovecraft encountered something like this, it would explain his literary works. I wish I was exaggerating. Its face had tendrils or tentacles. Some protrusions coming from its nose, maybe mouth. I can't remember its eyes at all. I remember seeing what looked like bare bone on the still very deer-shaped head. Its ribs were visible. The hair was longest on its belly and under its legs. Until I saw your friend's picture of the whitish thing she got on trail cam, with shadows of 2 others at least. Until I saw that, I had nothing to compare it to. That was almost identical in the body. Oh, no way. I think I still have that picture. Excuse me, just ate breakfast. Hold on. That was almost identical in body, though lacking the tail this thing I saw had, which was basically just a standard deer's tail, but much longer from what I could tell. It hung flat like a white-tailed deer's tail when it's not flicking around. I also don't recall if it had antlers per se, or if it was some other bony growth on the head. I didn't see them well enough, but it had something there. By the time I was coming back to my senses, its head was beyond the light, and a dairy cow-sized body was swaying by slowly. I remember it looking raw, somewhat bloody and crusty. How sickening it was to see its head sway on down, pointed neck. Its head was still parallel to the ground, just moving easily back and forth with its steps. I didn't pay any attention. It didn't pay any attention to us that I remember. But I felt like I was seeing one of the unspeakable horrors. Something that drives a person crazy when they see it. I felt like I was being crushed by its presence as well. I also tried figuring out why it looked so familiar in an odd way. Some, do not speak aloud, Wendigo images look similar to this being. Spoke it. It also had an odd, lightly out of focus visual effect, like the little raccoon imp thing. I feel like I have repressed much of that situation, and I should be able to describe more. It took a full minute to cross. It's like that with other encounters, much of it has been wiped from my mind or repressed. And they are things that probably drive normal people insane. I accepted when I was a lot younger things happen, which we can't explain because I had to. Maybe it has happened to me. Up to this sort of thing, maybe I've lost my mind. It feels like it at times. Seeing those eye sockets on the face area from that being in the picture I've mentioned gives me that unwell feeling, and I get mental images of basically that eye stalks set up with square pupils on red eyes. The similarities started making me question what this actually is that people see. For my own reasons, I believe they are tied to our plane somehow. They seem to cross over to our state of existence from the fourth dimension, often as avatars. I believe this avatar is what we call Bigfoot in various names, because it is not as jarring to humans to see a giant man/gorilla as other forms. The other forms are potentially from the ones who don't care, or are the dangerous ones anyway. Those who cause disappearances, to keep as pets, or catching their liver supper, would probably not care how they appeared, and the shock of appearance would even be useful. This brings me to the thing that had no face. The night was very windy, with warnings for property damage, 50+ mile-per-hour gusts. My ex, the same as with the raccoon thing and the deer thing, and I pulled into the driveway of my current address. We were just talking and watching stuff blowing around. And as we watch this plastic bag flying around in the gusts, we both see a featureless white head dart out from the corner of the building about 12 feet off the ground. It had a faint backlit style glow, although there was nothing to backlight it, a faint yellow color. The only light that could have lit it up was off, and it was a bright blue-white LED like the obnoxious headlights everyone likes these days. It held in place for almost a minute. We both at the same time said, "What the F is that?" It then pulled back behind the corner and vanished from sight. The bag we were watching was blowing in the opposite direction and was inches away from it when it started moving. So it wasn't crosswinds catching another bag. I have 5 steps to take from the car to the corner, and in 5 running steps, it was gone. No noise, no smell, no tracks, no disturbed items, as it was a corner used for nighttime bike stacking and quick car cleanouts, which is starting to be a common theme. Things looks out from corners that have so much stuff there is no way anyone could not disturb the bikes and items, not leave tracks or make sounds. I even looked on the roof. Nothing. Now, before I say what it looks like, a little rant. Location. Them. How dare you? What's wrong with you? Racist? Biden doesn't sniff children? This is what it feels like to talk to normal people who embrace today's society? Is stupefying and maddening and angering. So, now with that explained, This thing's face was what the Slender Man hoax being was supposed to look like. Gant, level, scrawny. There's some bunch of typos. I'm trying to do as best I can. Gant, level, scrawny, featureless, hairless. Gant? Paper white with an odd glow to it is one part that doesn't match the Slender Man description. And this is for the viewers if you do read my story. Despite the above, I still have to say I do not think it is Slender Man. Do not assume I do or do not assume I do or take the name and start making stuff up about what I said. It fits the description of its head. I have since seen it, read about a local encounter a few decades ago where these teenagers were wandering around in the woods. One saw it, got a friend who also say it when they returned to the woods. I think he meant also saw it. It was blank and white and undefined in shape, so I don't think it was a fluke or one-off thing. And as a kid, my parents had an apartment that was in what used to be a hospital in 1814, and then later an emergency surgery for Civil War soldiers, and a schoolhouse when not being used for amputation and bullet removal. And as I developed tonsillitis, I'm reading what's spelled here, is an inflammation. Osis is the condition of something. Bronchitis or lung swelling, arthritis is joints and bones swelling, for example, and osteoporosis is the condition of bones. It's oversimplistic, but it gets the point across. I kept walking up at night having waking dreams, as I was told, of being in a very old operating room, surrounded by people in gray and pale blue scrub-like clothes and lamps that I now recognize as carbide lanterns. Something I only learned about last year for the first time because mining and prospecting are major interests of mine, plus candles. It wasn't immediately frightening. I didn't feel scared or anything, but suddenly, not being in my own bedroom as I knew it. This happened more and more frequently until I was diagnosed with tonsillitis and adenoid problems. Adenoid problems? Adenoid. By then I was not breathing for almost 10 minutes at a time and scared my mother so much she started sitting in my room to make sure I started breathing again. After I had my surgery to remove them, tonsils and adenoids, it stopped forever, and as suddenly as it had started. It wasn't long after that I started having insomnia issues. For weeks I couldn't sleep from unexplainable fear. It got to the point where I just wanted to go watch stupid cable TV shows at my grandmother's to try to distract myself. It was agreed to because it gave Mom a chance to talk to her mother about it. And near the end of that particular bout of insomnia, we had that encounter I mentioned above, with the red oval with the blue center proportioned like an eye with a normal-sized iris. I've remembered this was during a meteor shower event that lasted for several weeks, and it was during the early to mid-90s. I have a night since then seen in the far distance some objects that will make me remember that event. It is quite regular, actually. It is also around these times I tend to have the most encounters and sightings. I will hear the odd activities in the woods, or things will happen like walking into a clearing in the woods to notice a sudden hard color shift. A gray-blue in my case. Everything was this color for a solid 15 minutes. It was also suddenly dead space. Quiet, no wind, no trees rustling, no animals hopping in dry leaves on the forest floor, no cars in the distance. The main road echoes for quite the distance, so hearing a big rig, some typos. Hearing a big rig hitting its jake breaker, cars honking, motorcycles, and so on is constant. This was definitely quiet. I could hear me, and that's it. Not even my own echo. I don't know if I hit a portal or if it was a portal or if it was a point where this plane and that one overlapped briefly. Did I step behind a flow of time for a brief period? No clue. It felt much longer than 15 minutes, and When I saw and heard everything come back to my normal, I was actually about 30 feet away from a big white-tailed doe and 2 yearling fawns grazing on blueberries. They were up in the woodline, but that doesn't usually prevent me from seeing them at a much further distance, nor do they allow people to get that close when wild. These are not backyard urban deer, all that well. These are wild animals with about zero human contact, and this was strange. Did I creep up on them while distracted with the blue color and lack of sound? Or did I step out of another plane right next to them? I took a step and crack on a stick under some moss and lichens, and the deer ran away after jumping about 10 feet straight up to the sound. You hunt and track professionally, Steve. What's your take on that particular situation? Did I creep on them, or did I just appear next to them? Or something else entirely? As this is already way too long for your format, I'll stop here. Perhaps I'll finish later in another emails, and I did try to keep everything relevant to the sightings. I understand if you decide to pick one story, if any at all. I don't care if you share my name and location. Corey Merrill, upstate New York. Thanks for what you do. Whew, there we go. Made it. Got through it. And there's a bunch of crazy-ass shit happening to you, man. Sounds like you and Sherry Stevens might have to have some talks, right? There's more than a handful of people having a lifetime of weird-ass shit happen to them. And then where do they get to go with that? Who do they get to talk to with that, right? Throw down in the comment section below if you can relate to anything Corey has to say, and especially in the zone. Lake George, upstate New York. Crazy. Alarming. The description of that thing with its head low down, that was pretty creepy. Very creepy. It's very odd shit going on, man. What else do we got? All right. This next one is titled as Red. Here's another one from West by God, Virginia. Hello, Steve. Just got to say, first and foremost, I truly admire you and your lifestyle. My name is Dave, and I'm 51 years old, and I've hunted and fished my whole life. I was fortunate enough to have a retired grandfather who I was raised by, and he instilled this in me. He was an avid outdoorsman. We made several trips to the Lake of the Woods, Miles Bay, Ontario. We would stay on an island in a remote camp for 10 days at a time. I shot my first turkey at age 6, so truly been in the woods my whole life. So now on with my story. We live in a town of around 40,000 people, but right outside town you are in rural farmland and lots of wilderness streams and a few lakes around, lots of deer and turkeys. So around September of 81, I was 12 years old. My cousin, who was a year or two younger, took a walk with our pellet rifles back into the woods behind his house, roughly about 80 acres. We hoped to get a squirrel or rabbit or something like that. And we saw a big brush pile down into a steep ravine. It was probably like 20 feet to the bottom of the ravine. A very steep sides. We literally slid on our butts down the side. We sat there a few minutes, probably 4 feet apart, whispering back and forth, waiting to see a squirrel or something, and that's when all hell broke loose. Have you ever heard a baseball fly very close to your head? Like standing in the batter's box and almost get beamed in the head by the pitcher? Well, that's the best way to describe that sound. But it wasn't a baseball. It was a big green walnut. And it came buzzing between our heads super hard. Hit the steep bank right behind us, and then another. Then we heard the loudest, longest, terrible growl/roar/scream ever. Branches or trees started breaking, and it roared again, this time closer. We scurried up the ravine wall like it was flat ground, and ran as hard as we could run for the house. At this time, my father was a deputy sheriff and was always armed, even around the house. He and my uncle were outside and heard us screaming, and they came running to see what was happening. We told them both what happened, and they walked up into the woods, but they found or saw nothing. They weren't sure what to think. They found our pellet guns and the walnuts. My whole life, my uncle kind of teased me and would always act like I was making it all up. And then a few years ago, in a place called Goose Creek, West Virginia, he had a similar experience and it scared him half to death. Needless to say, apologies were given for all the years of doubt. These damn things are definitely out there. I hope to never have anything like that happen to me ever again. Thank you for all you do, and I truly envy you and your lifestyle. If you're ever around Parkersburg, West Virginia, look me up. It'd be great to meet you. And I will. And I appreciate that email, man. Thank God. Well, not thank God, but how lucky is that person to have their uncle tease the shit out of him and then have it happen to him? I mean, how many times have we all wished for somebody who's the mouth of the room to have it happen to them, right? And there you go. This next email's title is, Was It Bigfoot? Steve, I've sent this story to you before, and since I haven't heard it read yet, I'm sending it again, just in case it was lost in that batch of emails. No worries, brother. It was way back in 72 time frame. I was stationed at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, newly married with our first and only child, a beautiful little girl of mixed descent. Her mother was a beautiful Puerto Rican, and I'm Caucasian. It was in the summer, and our whole shop, Hydraulic, had set up a picnic for everyone to get together at a pretty good-sized local lake where we could picnic and rent rowboats if we wanted to. So I rented one. Me and my wife and my little girl decided to row away from the crowd, and I selected a pretty good-sized point to go have our picnic lunch. Being in a rowboat, I looked for the closest one for us. Now, I can't recall the name of the lake due to old age. I'm 76, and it's a nice drive from the base. It sure was nice getting to go there for the get-together picnic. So I rode up to the edge of that point. It was pine wooded, so I picked a fresh place to set up, and we carried our blanket and everything to eat on the pine needle floor. It was sunny and a beautiful day for it. We were just getting ready to eat after settling down when all of a sudden I looked at my wife and she was looking off into the woods behind me. She had a worried look on her face. So I asked her, "What's got you spooked?" When it hit me, a feeling of what everyone says is dread came over me big time. I was so startled. I jumped up and started looking around the area behind me. I walked back into the woods a little ways while keeping an eye on her and my little 1.5-year-old daughter, just in case. The further I got back on the woods, the worse the feeling got. It was unreal of the level that I was experiencing. So I walked back over to her, and I asked if she wanted to leave, and she immediately said yes. So we gathered up everything and hightailed it back to the boat. And as soon as I was going to push off the boat, I thought I heard something back in there where we just came from, but after looking, I couldn't see anything. No animals or anything. The dreaded feeling was really strong and finally subsided as I rode away from it. We got back to our picnic crowd, and I swore to never go back to the lake again. I never told anyone back then. You don't want the ridicule and ribbing. So that's my short story. I don't think it was a bear scaring us, because if it was, it was hungry, it would be a missing persons or a bear attack report. And after thinking about it over the years, I honestly think it was a Bigfoot, or as I now know, a Sabe. Thanks for reading this to everyone. I've only told 3 or 4 other folks at work 5 or 6 years ago this story, and I told them, quote, "That's my story and I'm sticking to it. Believe it or not, I don't care." You take care of yourself, Steve and Sarah, and that beautiful dog, Ruby. That's a beautiful island you folks live on. It's breathtaking. Sometime I'd like to watch and listen to that Moon and Indian Wind song that I've only heard a couple of times before. That's something that you caught it on camera. That's an Indian song for sure, brother. Oh, and when you get to sit down and talk to the Sabe folks, ask them for me, why in the hell do they put out that dreaded feeling? That's creepy as hell. Dan Coaster Napier, Bonaire, Georgia. P.S. Sarah, if this gets through to you, please send it to Steve for me. This is my second attempt to get it to him. Thank you, dear Dan. You got it through. Did I read this? Why does this seem familiar? I don't think I did. Maybe I don't know. It's shared. We got it. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the club. What do we got here? Time for one more, I think. All right, I'm going to get going. I'm going to cut her a little bit short today because I got a lot to do. And I'm looking forward to getting back out in the woods. I'm really looking forward to taking everybody with me and showing you some sights, especially now I got that super amped up Starlink thingy. That's a good thing. Now, quick note. I just got to say this because I have to. The other day, the fraudulent reptile that's been placed as a figure for the public in Canada to think as a leader. He gave $2 billion to the Ukraine, to the World War III going on in the Ukraine, being called Russia against the Ukraine. It's World War III, period. But anyway, I'm just saying, as someone who feeds starving frickin' children in Canada, Stan, and to know that they just sent $2 billion of our money to go fund World War III, which is unwinnable. And then to know they also, these same pieces of shit, threw down $20 billion other dollars of our money over there, amongst other atrocities they've been feeding. It just makes me want to puke. It's in my face that we have no say. Nobody asked me for a vote on what to do with that $20 billion. Nobody asked me once if it was okay to send $20 billion out of Canada to go fund wars in Europe for the Europeans, for the UK. The UK is obviously who we answer to, but nobody asked me. Nobody asked me. Nobody even gave me a heads up. Said, hey, people, we're going to take your money that you set aside to keep this country a great country. We're going to take all that money that you pay in to keep this country great. Used to have been great. And we're going to send it off. What do you think? Said nobody ever. Isn't it amazing? This guy's got 3 or 4 passports, has never had a position in leadership ever in his life, and all of a sudden he's leader of Canada. And he's sending billions of dollars of our money at the command of the UK, without a doubt, to go fund a war that can't be won, which is now World War III. Anyway, I'm just frustrated. That's all. I'm just saying. I don't know why I do not hear people frustrated saying the same thing out loud online nonstop. I haven't a clue. It's amazing. It's an amazing thing to observe and be aware of. And I just do not understand how so many people are going through this lifetime with their heads up their buttholes. Dumb as a stick. Zero concern. Not even talking about it to their coworker or the neighbor. That to me is so sad, disgusting, embarrassing, humiliating. I can't get across smoothly just how amazing this is. Amazingly frustrating it is to watch this shit show go down right now. It's absolutely mind-boggling frustrating. Anyway, I gotta say something. Right? I gotta say something. What can I do about it? Well, what am I doing about it? Well, I'm reaching a fuckload of people here, aren't I? Trying to point shit out, trying to motivate people to get pissed off and say something out loud and tell their neighbors, tell their co-workers. I know a lot of people out here don't get to go deliver those boxes of food to those kids and see a small child jumping up and down in the doorway here in Canada because of a box of food on the floor. And meanwhile, the money that, $20 billion have left this country to go fund a war that can't be won. And there's kids jumping up and down when they get a box of food which they haven't seen for half their life, hitting the floor of their home. Or the 2 little beautiful little children that are living in a garage with plywood doors swung open for their front door. And $20 billion leaves the country. And then a few million refugees get shipped here and they don't have to look for work and they're put up in hotels and given an allowance $2,500 a month. And they don't have anything to contribute to society here at all. Wait in line. Am I against immigration? Nope, but wait in effing line. You don't come here until it's okay to accept you. Maybe we can afford your ass, or you have some way of contributing to society here. Legally. You know what I mean? All these things are very frustrating. I'm just rambling. I'm rambling right now, but anyway, I just hope that all of you, everybody, the whole world stands up against this dog shit real quick. I'll bite my lip. I don't even know if I'll post this up. Anyway, I'll be back tomorrow. Please, get your heads out of your buttholes. Look at what's going on in the world today and voice about it loudly, and don't be scared. All right? How's the future looking for your kids? Ask yourself that honestly. I'll be back tomorrow. Later.